so structured data is becoming even more of a priority. It's always back to relationships. The foundations are always the same. The new thing on top, yeah, great. The product, it will continue changing. But I think having solid relationships and trust in certain things are really what I want to prioritize. And there's all this flash and there's always a new shiny object, but the fundamentals are always the same. We've moved away from the exact match keywords. So we used to build out 10,000 different keywords and all the different variations and plurals and add negative keywords. But now that part is done with a lot of signal that happens behind the scenes and algorithmic bidding, where it can already extrapolate based on a bunch of things that happen in people's search behavior.
Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the AdTech Heroes podcast. I'm your host, Jon Wallett, and I'm really excited for today's episode. Today's episode is featuring what I'd like to consider a new good friend of mine, Mr. Matt Prater. We're going to be exploring some interesting topics around how generative AI has been transforming search, how it's reshaping marketing infrastructure, and really creating all new opportunities for a performance-driven business. And like I said before, Matt comes with a wealth of experience and knowledge in the space. He's now the EVP of Innovation at OuterBox. So I'm really excited to welcome here today. Matt, how are we doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on. Coming to you live from Austin, Texas today.
Yeah, I love a traveling, conversation because it kind of gets you into a different mindset. I like to think it opens people up more for conversation. What brings you down to Austin this week?
Yeah, we've got a StackAdapt conference. I'm here with a couple coworkers for conversion, and pretty excited to see the latest and greatest from StackAdapt. So we shall see, and hopefully get some music too.
I was about to say, you gotta wind up getting some good music and some good bourbon in
And
there.
tacos,
And tacos and obviously barbecue, right? Can't go down to Austin without that.
Of course.
What's your favorite barbecue spot down there, if you have one?
I mean, Franklin's like the spot, but I think we're gonna hit Terry Black's this time. It's pretty close to where we're staying, so and we don't have to park there at 8 a.m. or
I
whatever.
love it. You're just gonna deal with a little bit of that line, but it's damn well worth it. Honestly, I think I've done all the majors down there, but Terry Black's was my favorite back then. But
yeah, and I can almost see it from my place right now. So
that's great.
Close enough.
You're just waiting, do one of those breakfast ribs, right? Do it at 10:30 once it opens or something like that. Really hit the ground running for the day. Yeah. Okay. So listen, outside of barbecue, Austin, all those great things here at the AdTech Heroes podcast, we like to kick things off all about you. So Matt, we'd love to hear a little bit about, to kick us off. Tell us about how you got started in this career of yours here in ad tech and, what sparked your interest in just getting your foot in the water. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and where you came today.
Yeah, sure. So after school, I had studied economics and political science, which not really the same industry serving majors, but I was always interested in advertising. And that was when Mad Men kind of came out. So it was I always thought that was cool, but I wasn't in marketing, so I didn't really think that was something I could do. But I was kind of drawn to it. And I was actually coaching tennis at the time. And one of the kids that was on the team I was coaching had a dad who was connected to one of his good buddies ran a marketing agency. And he was the first guy that showed me Google Analytics. And I learned about Facebook ads. This is right when Facebook ads were starting to become a thing back 2010, 2011. And once I kind of saw that all this, data and I guess targeting granularity existed, I wasn't even aware of that. So as soon as I saw that was a thing and that's how Facebook made money and how Google made money, I was really interested and kind of deep dove into the space and really got an understanding of what drives user behavior online and that it wasn't just happening without any influence. There are people behind the scenes doing these things. There's data that you can get really specific on what people are doing and what people are interested in and their history. So from there, I was really going deep on Facebook ads and social analytics. And that kind of branched into Google ads. And I thought Google was a more mature platform. It had been around for 5-6 years by that time, and there were the Facebook ads interface was notoriously buggy, and you build out like a whole campaign and then it would crash. And you have to redo it all, new bulk sheets, and Google was just more stable. And I liked that it was maybe not more simple, but like the keywords leading to queries, leading to headlines, like that made more sense to me. And I kind of more specialized in the Google Ads side of things. So had a few years where I was managing high volume campaigns at an agency, and it was funny. Like my first two jobs out of school were full remote, and when I yeah, and as a 23-year-old, that's like
That's you're well beyond before the trend there. That's interesting.
I know. So I was doing Skype calls, and all my friends thought that it was like some made up make believe job. But I wasn't around like a lot of peers, and you learn a lot by being around people. And even though my boss at the time had a vast experience working he worked at Yahoo earlier in his career, and he kind of knew all of the digital I guess interface. He knew a lot of people at conferences, and but I didn't get that much FaceTime with or like one-on-one time. So I wanted to be in an office with people in Denver, where I was living at the time. Like I was just sitting in my apartment most of the time, living downtown, and I was like, I don't do any downtown stuff. So I wanted to be in the mix with a bunch of peers. So I got a role at an agency where I was specializing in Google search only. And after doing like lead gen and a lot of other um, wearing a lot of hats at startups, it was nice. It was refreshing to have like, one sole focus. And then I kind of got into the manager track in my career there. And I was there for about 5 years and eventually was leading the paid search team. So that was kind of my taste in like, okay, I've had the experience of running campaigns and now I've kind of more interested. And I think I was better at like leading teams, working with partners like Google or Meta, or I guess it was Microsoft at the time. I wasn't really doing social. Um, but from there, I thought I would graduate into like working for a brand, and that would be where I'd park my career, and it'd be easy sailing from there. So during COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty and advertising, and I had an opportunity to work for PopSockets, which is like the phone accessory brand. They're in Boulder, so it was just up the street from me, and I was really drawn to it from the talent that they had available there. Like so many smart people, and I was one little piece of that being marketing. Whereas at an agency, everyone's in marketing, everyone knows the lingo. Whereas when you work the brand side, like maybe you're one of 5 people there that knows what a CTR or a conversion rate means. So it was a whole new set of challenges, but it was cool. I got exposure to a whole other side of the business. So like
Right,
supply
right. Many hats. You're wearing many hats at that point, right? Yeah.
totally engineering and like all these people that I wouldn't have normally gotten to work with, which is cool. Kind of being on the other side of the table, like you get to see what your client counterparts are dealing with. Um, so I was really, cool time to be there because it was, business was taking off. Everyone's like using their phones more, so of course, like there's more interest in getting accessories. Um, but there's frustrations there too, where when people leave, some projects kind of die off, or there's all these like 80% implementations of things. And I kind of after a while realized that it wasn't how I had imagined working in house. Like there's the store never closes in e-commerce, so there's a lot of pressure around Black Friday and website launches going down.
You
Um,
don't really get to enjoy like
no,
the big holidays. I worked in retail for a little bit, an agency too, and I remember just like you're constantly on call, and
yeah.
it's
Oh, and my family could never understand. They're like, "What do you mean you have to check on Christmas?" It's like, well, we're doing like 500K this this hour, so we
totally.
gotta make sure it's working.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
those days.
so yeah, I was kind of after being there about a year and a half. This was when the jobs were going crazy, so I was getting hit up by recruiters constantly, and I saw this role for like a VP of search, which would have been a step up. I was like, well, I don't know if I want to go back to search, but I'll see what this agency's up to. And that was at the time called Metric Theory. They were eventually acquired by Media Monks. So I joined there as um, a group director of digital strategy. So it wasn't the paid search role. They were building out a new team in digital strategy, which I think lended to my experience being really cross-functional across different channels. And that was really the goal of that team, is to help bridge the gap between the classic agency silos of like paid search and paid social and programmatic. Like those teams don't work together in a lot of cases, and they kind of present their learnings or their strategy in silos. And our goal was really to take those stories and make sure that they translate to business results. And as someone who had just been at a in-house brand where the CEO is constantly asking us, what are the actual results from this marketing campaign on our business goals? I thought that parallel was pretty good for how I could bring value to that team. And
Totally.
I
You
guess
saw that through line, right? You were able to see, and everything you're describing to me, just as I'm listening to you, is like you kind of do things in your career. It sounds like you did a lot of things based on intent and with purpose, right? You're very purposeful with your approach, which I think is great. And I think that's great for younger generation people coming up in the industry to hear too and understand that, like, to your point earlier, like it doesn't sound like you were ever really siloed, right? You wanted to try something different. You jumped into that lane and you kind of gave it, with purpose, right? It wasn't just for the sake of like, oh, I'm not having a good time with this agency, I'm going to jump over. It's like, well, I want to learn and experience. Sorry, I'm just adding little anecdotes there because I'm just listening to, and I find it somewhat inspiring. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to, not just on this podcast, but in the industry, who've kind of started out with as a poli sci major. There's some weird, like, I don't know what it is, but it's there. I mean, I was a poli sci minor, if that, so for me, it's like, I guess there's something to be said for the way people think and approach those theories to media and advertising.
Yeah, what I really liked about poli sci and economics was that it took a lot of the math that I had learned. Like I took the AP math class in high school, and then I actually started college as engineering, and then realized like, well, I don't want that math. Like that's a little too much. But with poli sci, with economics, it applies some of those principles to real life, behaviors and trends, and you can kind of model things out. And that's a lot of what we do now, is we're trying to model out, performance forecasts, and it's not like to political, geopolitical situations or challenges, but it's similar types of application to real world, um, trends. And I thought that was really fascinating type of through line, like you said, where it's kind of, not necessarily what I learned, but the principles of it really lended to um, applying the new learnings to what we
Totally.
can do.
So,
So
so Matt, I want to bookend some of your story and your career journey with this. Would you say, like, just concretely, you are the Don Draper of ad tech? Just curious.
I'd say, uh, who's the other guy? Oh, I
Is it
can't think of his
Sterling?
name.
Roger Sterling?
Yeah, more of a Roger Sterling.
Okay. Okay. Good. I want to frame it,
I'm not the
for
creative
the
guy. I'm the
listeners.
relationships
Got it.
guy behind the
I
scenes.
love
Yeah.
it. I love that. Okay. So with that, your role is pretty big over at OuterBox. And what's a day like? What does it look like for you? When you tell people, you mentioned earlier when you were remote, your first gig, and you're working remote, and your friends are like, "Hey, what's this job? What are you really doing?"
Yeah.
What do people misunderstand about your current role? So what does it look like, and what are you constantly kind of explaining to folks around you about what you do for the day to day?
Yeah. Yeah. So EVP of innovation sounds like, some pie in the sky. Like, is that a thing? Like, what does that even mean? Like, you're an inventor? Like, what do you? So it's kind of a joke that I have with my friends that I'm just inventing. But it's not like product driven. It's not like I'm the creative. Like, I'm not the Don Draper guy. I'm more of the one helping facilitate, um, operationalizing a way of learning and a way of doing things, and challenging people to think outside of what we have been doing, and really trying to get cross-functional people, resources, tools working together so that we can kind of orchestrate along with AI our business to not just like add ChatGPT to the workflow and call it a day. Like we really want to rethink a lot of how we're approaching different problems that we face. So a day in the life is really just meeting with a lot of leaders within the company and understanding some of the challenges that they face, and how we're working. And maybe it's a tool that we can kind of rethink on how we're using it, or maybe we replace it. The Claude Code has made it possible to really make custom apps and um, connecting to MCP servers to create custom analytics. So really trying to think outside of how we've been doing things for the past 10, 15 years. And with the new age of rapid development and SaaS kind of becoming maybe commoditized and being able to like build it ourselves. We're trying to kind of create an operating system within OuterBox and how we can connect all these different pieces and make it so people can have more throughput. They can take on maybe more clients or quicker optimization cycles, and drive ultimately better relationships for our clients and better performance.
Right. And that goes to your point earlier, right? It's like, how do you, it sounds like you're striving towards how do all these intersecting workflows ultimately provide deeper insights to inform business decisions, right? Because everything that OuterBox is focused on is heavily on performance marketing, right? Um, and your remit, most of the clients that you're working with, would you argue they're small, medium-sized businesses? Like, kind of, what's the makeup that you normally deal with on a day-to-day?
Yeah, so we focus really on the mid market and small biz. Like, so we're working with business owners a lot of times, and not necessarily who I've worked with in the past, which would be like growth marketing teams. I'm working with a CMO at a public company when I was at Monks, and it's a totally different set of problems. Like, big marketing teams, they're all professional marketers. They all live and breathe this stuff. And that was kind of my experience from going like from agency to working at a brand. At the brand, everyone's not a marketer. And when you're working with a business owner, they're also not marketers. So they don't care about like the different optimization levers we have behind the scene and like new features within Google. They're like, what does this actually mean for my leads? So a lot of what we're working on, or who we're helping drive business, are business owners looking for leads for their business. They don't want to think about the marketing behind it all. They just want to focus on their business and what they started the business for. So maybe they're like industrial manufacturing or professional services. Um, even when we do work with some of these companies with marketing teams, like we do have a huge cohort of kind of small and medium business, but we do have a head of digital health clients where they're similar to the clients I worked with at Monks. Maybe they're like a telehealth service where they have same problems. They're looking for lead gen, but it's more of a complex, sophisticated. So they have bigger budgets, and I can lend some of my past experience on um, larger client relationships. But at the end of the day, it's really about telling the story and how what we're doing in digital translates to business outcomes. And I think that there's all this flash and there's always a new shiny object, but the fundamentals are always the same.
Yeah. And speaking of that, in your experience and knowing your it's called constituency, right? Or your constituents, small businesses, mid-tiered businesses or growth businesses, they have historically been relying on things like SEO and really driving their business forward, right? And with the advent of all these changes with GPTs and AI and GEO kind of taking suit in the industry, that puts you in, I think, a very unique position, because you've had such a you know advantageous growth trajectory in your career and a lot of exposure to these forms of performance marketing. So, I guess what I'm leaning into that kind of broad stroke comment there is how has the evolution of these channels or tools shaped the way that you're approaching clients today, and how are small businesses thinking about the effect that GEO is going to have on their business?
Yeah, I'd say it's similar to what I was just saying around there's always a new shiny object. There's always a new tool or a new feature, but the fundamental principles are still the same. You want to serve relevant content to people looking for it. So that's what Google is always trying to do with matching search queries. It used to be keywords, so we try and always be cramming keywords into content, or making these keyword lists within a Google Ads campaign, and have this through line from what people are searching for to what they're seeing in the ad to the landing page experience that they get on the website. And hopefully we want to break down as many barriers as possible to get people what they need quickly. With GEO or these AI overviews, that has really flattened. Like people can get answers by just asking Claude or asking ChatGPT. Um, so they're not really using Google search as the one space anymore. There's more platforms and more surfaces. But underlying everything is the data structure on your website to make sure that the LLMs can read it in a way that they can surface these results. Same thing with how Google can crawl your website. So we're finding that in this like question answer type relationship people have with LLMs, you want to have this question answer type structure in your web content. A lot of times, you see a lot of those answer engines just looking at FAQs on websites, and that's a lot of where the kind of shiny object trend is. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that the EEAT principles are still remaining strong on your website. Like the fundamentals haven't changed. It's really just how people and end users are interacting with these new tools to get the same types of answers.
Right. So to your point, it's like you're saying, like the behavior is not really shifted. It's just the immediacy of the content. So it's up for these brands to really construct their positioning on their websites more appropriately, right? For that query. So you're really thinking of as like there really is it well, let me ask you this. Is it a shift away from exact keyword matching toward more semantic topic approach, or how are brands really making that change? Like, I know you talked a little, you kind of briefly mentioned it here, but you're in a boardroom, you're talking to an up and coming small business, and they're very commerce heavy. A lot of their site has to do with product description or product related things. Like, what direction are you giving them, right? If you can think of it off the top of your head, to get them to say, this is going to benefit you. And look, GEO in that form of generative search is still evolving. I remember hearing numbers back in January that it was only like, don't quote me on this, but like 12% at the time of search queries were kind of flowing towards that type of behavior. I don't know where it is today now that we're sitting in May, but what are you saying to them when they're heavily focused on not wanting to re-engineer their site and things like that? Like what's going to change their opinion on that?
Yeah, I think we've moved away from the exact match keywords. Like even in like Google Ads, they've been pushing broad match for a couple years now, really since they've, I think, started capturing more of this LLM traffic and Gemini in Google. But it's getting better at understanding the semantics and the themes and actual intent of what people are searching for. And you don't need to like find a proxy for that with these keyword combinations. So we used to build out like 10,000 different keywords and all the different variations and plurals and add negative keywords. But now it's really that part is done with a lot of signal that happens behind the scenes and algorithmic bidding, where it can already extrapolate based on a bunch of things that happen in people's search behavior, their previous web behavior, their previous discussions with Claude or ChatGPT or whatever their LLM of choice is. And at the end of the day, it's how these different models are matching to content on websites. So with the commerce example, it's the same principle as Google Shopping, where you need to have a strong feed. There's never been keywords in Google Shopping. It's always feed based, and it's always based on your product descriptions, your headlines, the images. But now it's even more important because you're going to start seeing ads in ChatGPT that are surfacing products. So behind the scenes, it's the same data structure. You have to have a really robust product catalog with enough of these signals that the LLMs can determine what relevant content people are matching, or they can match to what people are searching for. And so structured data is becoming even more of a priority. And that's really what we're advising our clients and helping them implement. And you'd be surprised like how many large public companies just have a mess of analytics and data. And what my experience was at PopSockets, maybe the e-commerce director left and the next guy in line doesn't know why a bunch of things were set up. So they're relearning, and it's kind of this like telephone game happening where but it's telephone game, but with a multi-million-dollar business and a lot of potential revenue on the line. And a lot of what I advise clients on are like unmessing it up, like cleaning up a lot of just paper trail of a lot of people that have kind of touched it in years past. And because things change so quick, it's gotten to 80% and then maybe changed, and then gotten to another 80% and then changed. So it's kind of like this hodgepodge of band-aids and spitwads holding together a lot of really big websites, and the track measurement is never that great. So if you can really invest in understanding the analytics, the measurement, and how you're determining success, and the underlying data behind all of your products or services, that principle I think is the most important beyond any new flashy tool.
Right, right. And then to your point, those new flashy tools have to serve those purposes, right? So, I want to switch gears a little bit because I know that you guys are doing a lot of work with guidance around like chatbots and things like that for clients. And well, let me start my first question. Can you tell us a little bit more about what kind of solutions you're implementing when it comes to chatbots and generative workflows?
Yeah.
And is that really driving some operational efficiencies? Like what you just talked about, to me, that's how do you streamline operational efficiencies, right? So can you talk a little bit about some of the work you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do offer some AI services and products. So at OuterBox, we have a web assistant, which is essentially a chatbot, but it can be trained on your whole company knowledge base. So maybe you want to give it the FAQ, you want to give it a bunch of common answers to problems that your call center's getting, or maybe that your sales team is often dealing with. So people can have a place to get quick answers within the website. And I think that's really great for, some of the professional services or industrial manufacturing where they're looking for a really specific type of steel. Do you guys produce this? And what that does is generate a lot of zero party data on your website. Clients of ours that are implementing these web assistants are collecting all this data about what people are looking for. You can use that to inform your sales team or your website content or your marketing strategy. We also have kind of a leveled up version of a web assistant where it's kind of like a closed um, environment for a reskinned version of ChatGPT or Claude. So we can pull in, a bunch of all the different models that you want, and you can match it against all of your internal documentation. So maybe it's like all of your HR documentation around PTO policies and the employee handbook and any type of company knowledge base, whether it's HR side or sales side or your go to market, where all the employees can then have a place where they can use a chat GPT model, but be in a closed and safe environment around privacy and data governance. So they don't want to publish those back to the model. And then kind of as the top tier solution that we have are really AI as a service, where we're helping business owners implement some of these automation workflows. And maybe that's orchestrated with something like N8N, where you can tie together and orchestrate a bunch of their systems. So maybe their sales team needs help spinning up proposals after they've had a discovery call. So maybe we can kind of design a system where we listen to sales calls, we provide coaching tips for the different sales reps, we have lead scoring on top of that, and it can give the sales director a report on who their top sellers are, with coaching tips for their bottom sellers. And what we found is when we develop these tools for ourselves, a lot of our clients are interested in the same types of things because we're a B2B company. We're selling to other businesses. A lot of industrial manufacturing is the same thing. A lot of professional services looking for other businesses. So we found that like by eating our own dog food really and implementing these things internally, those become proof points for our clients. And I think sellers do really well when the product is good, and when they're using it themselves, of course, if it's working for them, it's going to work for their clients, and that is, better than any type of hard marketing sell. Like, it's basically a referral at that point, and kind of
It's interesting what you're describing here because some of the things that come to my brain are like, okay, you're talking about the democratization of, I wouldn't say AI, processes throughout the organization, right? And I think so many companies are saying the word AI and they're saying you got to use it, you got to use it, like it's coming down from the CMO down, but it's just like, or the CTO, but it's like, well, what's the applicable use of that? So it sounds like from what you're describing here is you're providing a bit of a North Star for a lot of these B2B companies to say, this is best practice, this is how you do it, and this is what's going to inform your growth, right? Because HR in some form or fashion does bleed into sales, which does bleed into everything else, right? All these things coexist together. Um, I love that a lot of people come on the podcast talk about AI, and what I think was interesting about our chat today is that you're actually talking about uh, practical use rather than kind of storytelling AI, which I think is great. I think one thing I want to get almost like kind of bookend our chat because we're almost coming to some time here. How far along do you think we are to the world of A to A commerce? Like you're helping these small business brands develop ways to be more discoverable within the GEO workflow, right? Or developing chatbots, not just for internal usage, but for consumer facing aspect to better inform sales events and productization. But where are we in that flow, like that innovation aspect? Like, what are your thoughts on A to A, like, actual, hey, here's my agent. I want to go to this trip to Aruba next week, or I want to go to Greece. Go do that work for me. Like, where do you think we are currently in that stage?
I think there's in my brain, like I'm in this all day. Like, I'm on LinkedIn and people are talking about AI. Everyone I talk to at work is talking about AI. But when I talk in like my personal life with people, like half my friends have never even heard of Claude. So it's like I think that, we have some of this, maybe it's confirmation bias or some type of like blinders up to what the rest of the world is really, how they're using it. And I think most people have at least like heard of ChatGPT or used it. A lot of those same people have done the subscribe and save, like on Amazon, right? Like the Kleenex or toilet paper that they have just on auto order. People are comfortable with that. But I don't think the masses are really automating agent to agent commerce, or even people who are like tech early adopters, I don't think are comfortable handing over their vacation planning to Claude. Like, maybe they're going to work with it to design an itinerary, or get the cool new beach location, but they're not booking tickets autonomously or calling ahead to the hotel. Like, I still want control over that, and I'd say I'm a pretty all in person on using these AI tools. So that said, it's moving very fast. Like, 2 years ago, these tools were still really in their infancy, and I think the same thing with like your subscribe and save. Some people will be more comfortable automating certain things, like booking meetings, and getting follow up notes out. So there's some pieces of that we can start to automate and not really think about, but at OuterBox, we still, in our core principles, we always want to have a human in the loop with any AI type system. And I just want to make sure that I can hit veto or provide an edit, or steer things before I just fully automate. Maybe in the next couple years, though, we will see some of these truly humanless types of agentic work where agents are talking to agents. They can maybe develop tools without having people step in. And I think that the models and the compute power behind it has accelerated to the point where it's getting close to that too. And I forget, there's like a benchmark on how long some of the AI tools can run autonomously and without human interference, and that has exponentially grown. So, it was 30 seconds back in December, and then Claude Code came, and now it's 3 minutes, and then it's 3 hours, and then it can run for months without anyone like messing with it. So I think it's our comfort level on what we're okay stepping out with.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point in saying I think there's certain shopping behaviors that are going to be that people will be more comfortable. You just made that example, right? With the, subscribe and shop, or
Yeah, like Amazon, like easy,
right,
things you
versus like a luxury trip, right? I kind of want that human interference to gut check me, right? Because I'm dropping $5,000 on, I don't know, whatever that trip is, right? I want to know that there's somewhat of a empathetic person on the other end of that experience who's putting my hat on their head and saying, okay, so listen, I understand the value of AI, obviously, considering our industry that we're in. But I think in the years to come, we're going to definitely be putting a premium on human interaction. I think that that's something that's going to be paramount. And it's interesting because that's a more analog approach to business. But I feel like there's going to be we're already seeing somewhat of a pushback from the younger generations on how AI is affecting their day to day. So it'll be very interesting to see how some of these, you know, to your point, concepts jump to actualization, right? And the speed of it is pretty impressive, like you just mentioned. So I think we need to be stewards of good behavior, and to your point, making sure that the human's always in the loop. Because without that, then A, we don't have any jobs, and B, it's a pretty scary future.
I think
Um,
that's right though, with the parallel between luxury and how services are really being valued. When everything is democratized and you can build software, it's like the relationship at the end of the day that is going to hold that business together. So like with an agency, every agency is using some of these tools, but we've built relationships with our clients to understand their business and what makes them different compared to their competitors. It's the same thing with really nice hotels. Like, yeah, all these hotels are nice, but the ones that have that extra service are the true luxury. And having travel agents are kind of a back again, right? Like everyone can go on Expedia and get the cheap flight, but like I don't want six connections. I don't want this thing. I want someone who knows that they have the loyalty here and I'm going to get the upgrade. Like, so it's always back to relationships. I think it's the same as what I was saying before, is the foundations are always the same. The new thing on top, yeah, great. The product, it will continue changing. But I think having solid relationships and trust in certain things are really what I want to prioritize and not um, get distracted from.
Great way to kind of bookend this conversation. I usually end the show with one or two questions. Considering our chat today, I'm going to throw a kind of a different one that I normally do. What's one thing that really excites you right now, and one thing that kind of enrages you?
I'll start with enrage, since I'm on LinkedIn a lot. God, the AI structure of it's not just this, it's that, or the M dashes. Like, there's so much slop, and just people are completely handing off any type of thinking to AI and just posting content for the sake of posting content. It all looks
Yeah.
the same. It's
It's so
so
easy to spot too, right?
it's so easy to spot. It's just like infuriating. The things that excite me though, I think what we were just talking about, like it's a refocus on the human side of things and like building relationships. I said at the beginning, I'm more of the Roger Sterling than the Don Draper, and I think that like his real strength are the relationships of his network. And I've always tried to prioritize the network and really lean on new friends and old friends to help me find different opportunities and success in certain areas. So I think that the shift away in my head from like chasing shiny objects and really leaning on the relationships keeps me motivated.
That you heard it here, folks. Matt is putting the human back in AI, and I love it. My man, thank you so much for the time today. Go get that barbecue when you can, and I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. And appreciate you joining the call, the podcast, I should say. And we'll definitely chat further. Maybe we'll have you back on in the future as things develop further into this incredible space that you're in.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do it. And thanks for having me on.